Sheng Gui accidentally entered the game world and, in order to achieve his wish of immortality, attempted to help the son of Qi Yun grow up to fight against foreign demons and promote the smooth development of the world line. A mere demon, not to be afraid of, can't we still fight in groups if we can't beat it? On how to cultivate the peerless Sword Immortal, the cultivation methods of War God, and the journey of Dan Dao Genius, however, she found that various exotic demons with halos on their heads did not seem to be the biggest obstacle on her way home. The boundary between reality and illusion, the fate between cultivation and being cultivated, and the choice between completion and letting go. Every small sapling planted with care will one day be lush with branches and leaves. The world flows day and night, with fine water flowing long. 1,000 years of cultivation is not worth a moment of the mundane world. Place a game consumption guide in the comments section. Please be cautious when entering the game. Keywords of the novel. Playing cultivation games in the cultivation world without pop-ups, playing cultivation games in the cultivation world. Download the complete set of TXT, and reading the latest chapters of playing cultivation games in the cultivation world. Chapter 1. The possibility of PlayerUnknown survival. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The possibility of PlayerUnknown survival. Sheng Ting had just finished a week-long treatment and couldn't wait to lie down in the silver-white spherical game room placed in the corner of the ward. The popular large-scale immersive game, The Immortal Journey, is hard to find, has received widespread praise since its release. She, who is extremely bored and trapped in a room, naturally cannot miss it, and even became addicted to it for a while. The plot of the game takes place in a small world called Tianshao, which is a magnificent world where immortals, demons, and ghosts coexist, and the waves are magnificent. Players can experience the cultivation and combat techniques, learn various skills, and experience a diverse life. Or go sightseeing and enjoy delicious food, or make friends and establish factions. Of course, you can also participate in the plot, establish bonds with the characters, search for hidden world truths, and have multiple gameplay options for you to choose from. That game warehouse was specially customized by Xing Yan's family with the game developer Virtual Time and Space Company in order for her to have a better gaming experience. They even spent a lot of money and tailored a personalized game modifier, giving her the capital to thrive and act recklessly in the game. The protagonist in the plot, Lu Lanyun, is born into a secular dynasty with an ice spirit root that is exceptionally talented and possesses a yin spirit body. For some reason, she travels alone from the mortal kingdom to the cultivation world, hiding her identity in a small sect and striving to cultivate. In the end, she stands out in the sect competition and is protected by the head of the Xuanshuang sect, who also possesses the same yin spirit body. The ups and downs of the past are unknown to everyone. After a century of hard work, Lu Lanyun devoted himself to repay the kindness of the sect and protect the human race. He devoted himself to the battlefield against extraterrestrial demons and became famous after several battles, gaining numerous followers and becoming a thorn in the side of demons and some jealous human races. For the female protagonist who is resolute and tenacious without losing her childlike heart, Sheng Yi naturally likes her very much and has also extended a helping hand to her team multiple times. Sheng Yan took a deep breath and was about to log into the game when suddenly a huge explosion came from outside the game compartment. The indicator lights inside the compartment flickered incessantly, and then he fell into endless darkness. The help bell that she had not yet had time to ring began to echo helplessly in the narrow sealed space after an unknown amount of time. When I opened my eyes again, I was caught off guard by the hot air rushing towards me, and in a panic, I closed my eyes again. Hot, so hot. A large amount of information poured into her mind as if it had been split open by a giant axe, causing her to feel a headache and a constant stream of extreme pain from being burned by hot objects all over her body. The blood-colored world that I saw in the flustered glance I just opened my eyes is not an illusion. She is now immersed in the scorching sea of blood. Feeling immense pain, Sheng Yan opened his eyes again and looked at his tender hands, which clearly did not belong to him. He remained silent for a moment. This is truly a speechless journey. Struggling to turn over and face down, trying to avoid the hot air hitting her eyes, Xiaoxing lifted her head and looked around. According to the information analysis in her mind, she crossed into the game world after encountering an explosion, and now she is located in the life-forbidden zone on the edge of the heavenly sky realm, the ghostly sea of blood that everyone fears. Carrying Sheng Gui swaying in the sea of blood was a huge silver bamboo basket, which seemed to be overwhelmed by the prolonged burning. Several gaps appeared, and the foul-smelling and thick blood poured into the basket. It was the culprit that awakened her, and the silver light on the basket gradually faded to the naked eye. Bad luck, it's really bad luck. They either become the protagonist or the villain when traveling through time. As long as they don't enter the abusive main text, no matter how bad it is, they are basically physically sound. There's no such thing as a desperate survival. The probability of failing is outrageously high. Before being completely engulfed by blood and water, Sheng Yan reached out to the sky in despair and let out a heart-wrenching cry. Help! End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The line between good luck and unfortunately. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The line between good luck and unfortunately. On the line between good luck and unfortunately, perhaps fate should not have ended. On that day, Sheng Qi was extremely lucky to be saved by the Fengjiawa Shinto lord who was patrolling the Sea of Blood. There are 3 realms within the heavenly sky realm. The immortal realm, the mortal realm, the demon realm, and the demon realm. The mortal realm and the demon realm coexist in one realm, and the immortal realm is far above the dome. The demon realm is unaware of its whereabouts. There is a deep and bottomless gap between the human realm and the demon realm, and the underworld blood sea is located beneath it. Since ancient times, the Feng family has been sitting in the gap for thousands of years. It is said that the blood of the Red Phoenix flows on the people of the clan, allowing them to freely enter and exit the underworld blood sea and easily avoid entering the world. No one knows why the Feng family has been unwilling to leave the harsh environment for a long time. Is it to guard the secret of the underworld blood sea and the crevice, or is the underworld blood sea already the territory of the Feng family? More daring speculators speculate that the Feng family was exiled and imprisoned in a crevice. Every time he hears such rumors, Sheng Ting laughs them off. It is unclear whether it is good luck or misfortune. In her previous life, she was a seriously ill patient who spent most of her life trapped in a room and tormented herself. She should have closed her eyes forever under the mournful gaze of family and friends. But after encountering an accident, she woke up again and saw a new and familiar world for her. Virtual data has become reality, and she has also become an ordinary orphan girl with no sense of existence in the plot. It is inappropriate to say that the little girl is extremely ordinary. She has an average appearance, a mediocre family background, and a mediocre cultivation. In this world of cultivation surrounded by wolves and the law of the fittest, it is difficult for a child without any support to survive, let alone a seriously ill orphan. When she first arrived, she was trapped in a sea of blood. After being rescued from the sea of blood by the Feng family, she was found to have been poisoned by a strange poison that had no cure, and her life was not long to come. Fortunately, after that, she had a big, very large support. Her master, Bian Zheng, is known as the first person under the immortal realm. He was entrusted by his friends and was also moved by the tenacious survival desire and tenacious will of the little girl at that time, leaving her behind and protecting her to grow up smoothly, and teaching her attentively. Do not seek to climb the great road, only seek peace and prosperity. In a blink of an eye, 8 years passed, and the once innocent Tuanzi also grew into a pink and tender little girl. Apart from her plump face, her figure was still relatively thin and weak, but at least she looked like a normal person. Regarding this, Zaichuanzi Sheng Gui expressed great satisfaction. Compared to his previous life when he often couldn't get down and move freely, this happiness is simply indescribable. After a struggle, Sheng Yan reluctantly left the warm blanket roll and slowly folded the bedding. Fine and dense rain began to fall on Guiyu Mountain. The whole mountain peak is quiet before dawn. The chilliness of spring is not illusory, as the chill rushed through the open window and squeezed into the small wooden house, causing a shiver. After washing up in the morning light, Shengting clumsily gathered her black hair together, tied it tightly with a headband, and carefully checked for any flaws. She bounced back and forth in front of the mirror a few times, showing a big smile. She always cherishes things that are hard-won. Putting on a thick cloak and stepping out of the door, Sheng Huan greeted the peach tree that occupied most of the yard with a smile. The peach tree seemed to have a spirit, shaking its branches in response, with petals fluttering and falling in the drizzle. The mountain road was wet and slippery, and Shengting held an umbrella in his left hand and a glass cup in his right hand, carefully stepping on the stone and walking upwards in the radial direction. There is a very simple medicine house on the mountaintop, and under the corridor are some spiritual medicines she picked from the mountains and forests, neatly arranged on the shelf. These spiritual medicines are processed through special techniques, which not only ensure that the medicinal properties are not lost much after picking, but also extend the storage time. Although the medicine house is small, it has all 5 internal organs. Bianzheng enjoys tranquility, and there is no one else in Guiyun Peak except for her and Bianzheng on weekdays. Shengting thinks this is good, and she is not very accustomed to crowded environments. The room seemed to have been visited a moment ago, and the tea on the table was still slightly steaming hot. The night pearls embedded in the beams of the room emitted a soft light. Take the tea cup, add some refreshing and eye-catching tea powder, pour in hot water, gulp it down, and it's all done in one go. Shengting sat down by the window, carefully flipping through the Illustrated Guide to Spiritual Medicine in front of him, occasionally picking up a pen and circling dots. There are also several books such as Dan Jian, Pharmacological Compendium, Medical Classic, etc. placed beside the case, in large quantities, almost forming a small wall. Bianzheng held breakfast and pushed open the door of the medicine house. At a glance, he saw the little girl buried in her studies, feeling a sense of heartache. Why are you suffering? The group of crazy people at Jianfeng haven't even started morning exercises yet. The white-haired fairy gently lowered the wooden plate. Even though Qingjuan's clean eyebrows and eyes were full of melancholy, they were quite beautiful. Fortunately, after watching for a long time, there will always be immunity. Sensing someone approaching, Xing Qian put down the book in his hand, picked up the red bean soup from the tray, and smiled as he spoke in a long voice. A day's plan is in the morning, isn't Bianzheng also awake? She is now 8 years old, at the age of pretending to be cute, and her cute little tiger teeth when she smiles appear particularly cute. The steaming red bean soup is warm and delicate in the mouth, and with a spoonful of crystal clear osmanthus candy added, it is even more fragrant and fragrant. Serve it well. The most ordinary ingredients have a unique taste, and you can tell from a taste who made them. In the game, there are 5 major sects in the cultivation world, namely the Red Sun Sect, Xian Frost Sect, Lingxiao Sword Sect, Giant Spirit Sect, and Beast Control Sect. The Guiyu Mountain where they are located is one of the 6 peaks of the Xuanshuang Sect. In the plot, Bianzheng is the junior uncle of the contemporary leader of the Xuanshuang Sect, who has already reached the extreme realm and stepped into the immortal sect. As promised by his master and the previous leader, he needs to protect the Xuanshuang Sect for another 100 years before he can leave. When Xing Yan was rescued by Feng Xian and sent to Bianzheng, the two of them discovered that she had just been born and was forced to sleep for 4 years before waking up 3 years ago. For the sake of convenience, she openly claimed to be a disciple of Bianzheng, but in reality, she did not perform any apprenticeship ceremony, and her relationship with Bianzheng was more like that of a family member. For Bianzheng, she harbors a sense of guilt. Originally a wandering immortal from outside the world, he was forced to jump into the quagmire due to the appearance of Sheng Gui, and began a professional life of searching for medicine to save people and cooking medicine all over the world. She knew very well that most of her survival was due to the protection of Bianzheng. The 3 spiritual roots of water, wood, and soil are of average talent. The peculiar poison in the body is hidden in the blood vessels, penetrating deep into the 5 organs and lungs, and cannot be completely removed, with occasional attacks. If the outside world were to know that Bian Zheng had smashed so many natural resources and treasures onto a useless person with only 3 levels of qi cultivation and perhaps no progress for a lifetime, countless people would be so angry that they would call him a loser. Sheng Yan has never paid much attention to external rumors, and she never considered herself a useless waste. All sentient beings have destiny, and they have their place. In order to pass the boring time, she, who has eternal life in the game, spent most of her time studying the 2nd level of rune formation and reached the top several times. Don't ask why she doesn't study the elixir. Just thinking about the drugs and various treatments she uses on herself every day makes Xingting feel numb on her scalp. How could she face something similar that causes her immense pain? Living reality in different places is ultimately different from games. Bian Zheng will leave sooner or later, it's impossible to protect her for a lifetime. Everything depends on oneself, to become strong, in order to face the unknown. The first step towards longevity is to maintain good health. Therefore, in these days, Sheng Yan has been studying medicine more and more diligently, borrowing a large number of related books from the Xuanshuang sect library, and starting to learn some basic knowledge before dawn every day. No matter what you learn, it is important to have a solid foundation. Fortunately, when she crossed over, the versatile modifiers she had used in her previous life came along with the game system. One of the guidelines for travelers is that wherever they cross, there must be cheats. In her previous life, her family specially customized a personal exclusive version of the game modifier to take care of her gaming experience. In terms of its functions such as modifying roots, attributes, background, and luck, it can be considered a top cheating tool, let alone other functions of all sizes. The skills and knowledge she has learned will be automatically entered into the system, and the books she has read will also be included, making it convenient to view them anytime, anywhere. Thanks to the help of the modifier, she can occasionally perform simulation exercises in the system space, saving a lot of costs. Currently, the game system and mods have low levels due to insufficient energy, and most functions have not been unlocked yet. Daily activities can provide energy points for system upgrades, and the system can also convert items into energy points through recycling. The conversion points depend on the specific value of the items. Sheng Ting is accustomed to using her morning time for studying, while in the afternoon she carries a backpack to the mountains to pick spiritual plants, process medicines, and practice drawing symbols and formations. Night is her cultivation time. It is necessary to apply what has been learned and practice diligently. Whether diligence can make up for shortcomings remains to be determined. In all unknown situations, without diligence, there will definitely be nothing. Since she has dressed up as a small character with no presence in the plot, she is not prepared to get involved in the mess of the cultivation world and the love, hate, and hatred of the main characters too early. She should first rest assured and treat her illness and cultivate, and live a good life with Bian Zheng on the small Guiyu peak, then become stronger, and stronger. It would be great to be able to visit the immortal sect as soon as possible. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Possibility of Getting Rich by Mowing Grass. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The possibility of getting rich by mowing grass. The rain outside the window gradually stopped and the sky became slightly brighter. After finishing breakfast, Sheng Shi put away the dishes, picked up the bamboo basket in the corner, and casually wrapped a few pastries on the table into a storage bag. It's been raining continuously lately, and I don't have much material left to make talismans. I have to take advantage of the rain and hurry into the mountain to dig some points. After tying the cloak strap, she turned her head and casually said to Bian Zheng, "I won't come back for lunch. Remember to eat by yourself. Of course you can skip it, whatever you want. Okay, pay more attention to your own safety." Bian Zheng looked at the little girl carrying a bamboo basket that was about the same height as herself, holding her forehead with both hands, feeling helpless. After receiving a reply from his guardian, Shengting had no psychological burden and turned around to go out with a thud. The variety of spiritual plants in Guiyu Mountain is abundant and thriving, making it an inexhaustible treasure for her. There is a small lake halfway up the mountain, and the red hemp grass by the lake is noticeably taller, stronger, and more resilient than elsewhere. Red hemp grass is the main material for making talismans in the cultivation world. The seeds of this batch of red hemp grass have been improved multiple times by Xingyu, so they have grown very well. First, carefully collect the seeds from the top of the grass branches and place them in 2 small bags. Some of these seeds will be used for the next planting, while the other part will be handed over to the sect in exchange for contribution points. Motivate the spiritual energy to harvest all the mature red hemp grass, put it in a storage bag, and rush towards the depths of the forest. The mountains are filled with spiritual energy, and numerous wild spiritual plants are scattered and rooted everywhere, growing freely. Recently, there has been a lot of rain, the soil is loose, the ground is slippery, and there are large and small puddles everywhere. Walking through them is a bit difficult for her. At the edge of a steep cliff, Shengting posted a light talisman for himself and quickly picked the light feathered grass that only grows on the shady side of the mountain. Through multiple research experiments, it has been confirmed that different materials of talismans can also have some impact on the effectiveness of finished talismans. For example, using rune paper with added light feather grass to make lightness talismans has a 30% better effect than using ordinary rune paper to make lightness talismans. Don't underestimate these 30%, some subtle differences can often determine life and death at certain times. The accumulation in her previous life has led her to a relatively high starting point in the second lane of the talisman array. Now, she only practices 3 layers of qi, and once her cultivation level improves, she can completely widen this gap. The urgent task is to solve the problem of blood vessels being eroded by blood toxins and to elevate damaged roots and bones. It's easy to say that the root bone has a system, but activating and modifying the root bone function requires 10,000 points of energy. The system mall only provides 0.1 energy points for recycling raw materials for 1 piece of rune paper, but 1 piece of red hemp grass can make 10 pieces of rune paper. Recycling 1 piece of rune paper also provides 0.1 energy points, totaling 1 energy point. The rune paper made using the improved rune paper formula from Shengyi is worth 0.2 energy points. Most Fu masters in the cultivation world only enter the Fu Dao during the foundation building period. Those with better talents can draw Fu in the later stage of Qi cultivation, and the first level lower level can be considered top-notch. The Dan array symbols in the heavenly sky realm are all divided into 9 levels, which can be classified into lower, middle, top, and ultimate levels. The corresponding cultivators also have 9 levels. She is currently able to stably draw various high-level talismans, and occasionally produces top-notch ones when she performs extremely well. She is reluctant to sell them to the system and saves them for unexpected needs. The first level high-quality talisman can be sold to the system with 1 energy point, and 20 pieces can be drawn every day. In the past 2 years, it has accumulated nearly 10,000 energy points. In the first 2 days, she didn't make any talismans due to insufficient materials. She calculated that as long as she drew 40 more, the energy points would be enough to activate the modification of the root bone function. Hard work pays off for those who have a heart. This belongs to the first step of overcoming hardships and achieving success. Shengting's mind was filled with some happy things, his face beaming with joy, bouncing up and down the mountain path. The result of being complacent and forgetting oneself is unfortunately tripping over the gravel and falling into the puddle. Quickly covering the back of his head, Shengting seemed to hear a light sigh, and the expected pain did not come. She fell into a soft and fluffy feather sleeve. Hey, Senior Uncle Ajin still has such a childish nature. Struggling to stand up from the wide feather sleeves, Sheng Gui's smile gradually disappeared. The newcomer stood tall and upright, with a jade-standing body. The cloud-white brocade robe on his body shone brightly in the sunlight, and his texture was extraordinary at first glance. A head of frost-like long hair neatly tied behind the head, with extremely light eyebrows and eyes, and bright pupils, full of coldness. A little red flame on my forehead, just like a young man. The little girl awkwardly touched her nose and lowered her head, afraid to look at it. Isn't this Uncle Bianchi? Thank you very much. The person who came is Bianchi, the head disciple of the Xuanchuang sect, and the contemporary senior brother of the Xuanchuang sect. As the younger brother of Bian Zheng and the most outstanding descendant of the Bian family, he began practicing at the age of 6. Within a year, he progressed from practicing qi to building foundations, and now he is only 30.2 years old. He has successfully entered the primary infant stage. Genius is always qualified to be capricious. People compare themselves to others, and they are infuriating. Every time I see him, Sheng Ting always numbs himself. Well, one day, she can do it too. Another awkward reason is that although Bian Qi and Bian Zheng are siblings of the same father and mother, their ages differ by nearly 400 years. I have to marvel at the amazing age difference in the cultivation world. The parents of the two brothers ascended to the upper realm shortly after Bian Qi was born. Xiao Bianqi was taken by Bian Zheng to the Xuanchuang sect and later became Bian Zheng's nephew. The disciple of the head of the Xuanchuang sect, Xuanxue Daojun. This operation, in a sense, resulted in Bian Qi being one generation shorter than his own elder brother. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The difference between edge characters and artillery ashes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The difference between edge characters and artillery ashes. The mountain path where Xingqi and Bianqi are located is on the shaded side of Guiyu Mountain, where there is a vast and boundless cliff that is extremely steep. She looked at the abyss beneath her feet, filled with joy, and asked, "What is your nephew doing here?" A peaceful scene. Sheng Ting felt the gaze falling on his head and lowered his head again, feeling guilty. On the opposite cliff, there were many small streams hanging down. A moment ago, it was still peaceful, but now a strong wind suddenly blew up, and water mist dispersed. Bian Qi stared at the crooked ponytail on the little girl's head for a while before moving his gaze away. Underneath my heart, I secretly pondered. Bian Zheng has never liked to tie her hair, always letting a silver thread fall and scatter freely, and his master is also like this. Master, the leader, can be considered to have brought up Bian Zheng with his own hands, and Sheng Gui is also brought up by Bian Zheng well. His hair is very neat, not bad. Originally expressionless and speechless, his own nephew suddenly showed a rather eerie smile, and Sheng Yan felt anxious in his heart and quietly retreated. A fair and slightly thin hand stretched out from the wide sleeve of the robe, tidying up the hem of the sleeve that was rustling in the wind. Ignoring some of Sheng Qi's small movements, Bian Qi's mood suddenly became wonderful and he didn't hesitate to smile and speak up. "I came here specifically to tell little master uncle some good news." "You lied. That's what you said the last time you stole a little dim sum from Bianzheng and asked me to carry it." "Disgusting my nephew, she is very bad, and she is known for not being disciplined. She didn't think her nephew would come to wander or come to such a remote place. No matter which sect it is, people who can be referred to as contemporary first disciples, senior brothers, senior sisters, etc., not only have unparalleled cultivation, but also have excellent temperament. It is extremely important to have a good understanding of secular human relationships and sect affairs. Most of them are given deep expectations, and their footsteps cannot stop at any moment. They are usually very busy on weekdays. Even Bian Qi, who was extremely talented, could not escape the distress of being entangled in the affairs of the sect. Sheng Ting still admires him greatly. It would be even better if he didn't constantly bully her. While Bian Qi's innate talent is enviable by everyone, his temperament is often unpredictable. However, once you become familiar with him, you will find that he is inherently rebellious. Bian Qi straightened his expression and said, I really didn't lie to you this time. Great news. You know, the Xuanchuang sect is located in the extremely cold and northern part of the heavenly sky realm. Sheng Ting nodded silently, and she naturally knew that the shaded side of Gaiyufeng Mountain was facing the boundless snowfield. Guiyu Mountain is very high. When the weather is clear, standing at the top of the mountain, one can occasionally see the shimmering snow peak. Even she was aware that the Xuanchuang cave, which claimed to be the most and cold place in the heavenly sky realm, was located below Guiyu Mountain. In the game plot, the female protagonist Lu Lanyun is pregnant with a spirit body and makes a remarkable achievement in the sect competition, successfully entering the Xuanchuang sect. After becoming the head disciple, the female protagonist spent a long time practicing in the Xuanchuang cave. Brother, in order to alleviate the fire and poison in your bloodline, he once traversed the boundless snowfield and found perhaps the last frost sky spirit core in this world, which was transplanted under our feet. Bian Qi took a step forward, reached out to the abyss, and turned his head to look at Sheng Qi. In order not to be cold-hearted, she followed Bian Qi to the edge of the cliff and thoughtfully followed her own nephew's words to ask. Under our feet. The white-haired boy seemed very satisfied with her debut and continued to speak slowly. However, the deep abyss beneath this cliff is the coldest and darkest place in this world, which you have ever been to before. Sheng Ting's heart was filled with curiosity. He blinked and reminisced, but his mind had no relevant memories. She has some impression of the frost sky spirit core. Lu Lanyun's spiritual meridian was destroyed in the later stage, and it was through this object, which is also extremely and cold, that she repaired the spiritual meridian and further improved her cultivation. I seem to have never been to the impression below. During the 4 years you slept, in order to suppress fire and poison, I sent you down to the cold abyss every morning, and then back to the Feather Mountain at night. You naturally don't remember. Bian Qi grabbed Sheng Gui, who had protruding half of his body from the cliff and looked around, and pulled him to his side. The frost sky spirit ruins bloom every 10,000 years, and the plant itself carries a strong poison. Only its flowers can be used as medicine. Bian Qi's eyes were filled with joy, and he quickly pressed it into his heart. The weather is nice today. Counting the days, this spiritual bud is about to bloom. I'll come and take a look. Unable to suppress his curiosity, Sheng Yan tugged at his sleeve and spoke loudly. My nephew. I also want to go down and take a look. Aren't you still going to collect spiritual plants for making rune paper these days? Good senior brother, help me out. I'll finish picking it soon. In terms of shamelessness, your skills are truly at their peak. Bian Qi glanced at the small backpack held by Sheng Gui, feeling that his perfect ice face was about to lose its tension. He sneered softly, but still reached out and swept down a large patch of light feather grass on the cliff, gathering at Sheng Gui's feet. Are these enough? That's enough, thank you, senior brother. Occasionally being lazy is also good. Sheng Yanmei smiled and put Kinjiuko into his storage bag, then carried the bamboo basket back on his back. The small basket was filled with various spiritual fruits she had collected, and upon closer inspection, she could still see several brightly colored, plump mushrooms inside, serving as snacks along the way. Martial nephew, ah no, senior brother, let's go and see the frost sky spirit ruins. No matter what, my nephew. I have something to do, my senior brother. Sheng Qian is well versed in this principle. Unfortunately, some people are very fond of this. The two of them smoothly descended to the cliff and continued forward. The further north, the colder the cliff bottom becomes, and the white frost covering the cliffs on both sides gradually increases. Bian Qi spoke up and ordered, ahead is the cold abyss. The Xuanchuang cave is at the innermost point. Be careful and follow me and don't go far. Although he hasn't been in the early stage of yuanying for long, he himself is also a spiritual body of the highest yin, practicing the heavenly frost technique of the lowest cold to yin, and he is not afraid of the cold here at all. But he is not sure if his junior uncle will be okay. But when little master was still an ordinary person, he was able to come and go freely, and now there is a high probability that nothing will happen, probably. As soon as he stepped into the cold abyss, Sheng Gui felt a little relieved, and the cool and refreshing air rushed onto him, feeling quite comfortable. There is a small pool in the center of Xuanshuang Cave, and the legendary Frost Heavenly Spirit ruins are standing quietly on the shore. Sheng Ting cautiously leaned over to the pool and squatted down, staring wide. He murmured softly, "It's really beautiful." The Frost Sky Spirit core is transparent throughout its body, with 9 leaves on its branches. A flower bud hangs from the top like a lantern, and the petals are layered and thin like cicada wings. Only the core seems to have golden threads flowing between. Everyone has a love for beauty, and she cannot escape the scope of loving beauty. Don't get so close. Bian Qi reached out and grabbed the little girl's collar, lifting her to his back. He spoke calmly, "It seems that the Frost Sky Spirit ruins have matured in these few months. The Frost Sky Spirit ruins are not yet mature, and no one can guarantee that accidents will not happen. As a highly toxic substance, they have 10,000 courage, and he dare not let the young martial uncle take risks." When he really saw the Frost Sky Spirit Rui, Sheng Ting remembered some things, some small things mentioned in the game plot. She has exclaimed more than once that the female lead is really lucky. The last Frost Spirit bud of the Heavenly Sky realm grows under the Guiyu mountain of the Xuanshuang sect and blooms every 10,000 years. When Lulanyan's spiritual pulse was destroyed and he was in a crisis of life and death, the Frost Sky Spirit ruins were mistakenly eaten by the demon beasts in the mountain. The Chonghua Sword Lord angrily beheaded the demon beasts and extracted the medicinal power from their blood to heal Lulanyan's injuries. A cold breath rose from the bottom of my heart, permeating Sheng's 5 viscera and lungs. She couldn't wait to confirm something before trembling and saying, "Good nephew. Is this Frost Sky Spirit ruin really the last one in the Heavenly Sky realm?" Bian Qi lowered her head and saw Sheng Qi's expression. She sighed and instinctively thought that she was worried that the spiritual plant was too precious and burdened. What about the last one? Little martial uncle should be happy if he can recover. Of course I'm happy, I'm excited. She was about to cry, and Bian Qi didn't feel that her young master looked happy. This little girl was actually quite good everywhere, but sometimes she was too stubborn, which made her look different from them. You've been eating and drinking for free here for 8 years. If you eat a little more, Bian Zheng will be happy to run errands. You should also think about Bian Zheng. No, you misunderstood. I'm not really heartbroken. Sheng Ting was about to cry without tears. Of course, she was very grateful to Bian Zheng, and knew that as a patient, one should take medicine, but now she doesn't know how to explain it. I'm thinking, will there be any monsters down here? You have been living on the mountain for 3 years, and you should be most aware of this. She certainly knows it. The Guiyu mountain in the game is a forbidden area and players are not allowed to enter. When the Chonghua Sword Lord killed the monster, it was only mentioned in everyone's memories, and there was no mention of what the monster was. Guiyu mountain is hidden in the sea of clouds all year round, with various large formations and small formations. The small formations conceal the large formations, and there is also a side jing sitting there, which has a high safety factor. Frost Sky Spirit ruins cannot be eaten by demon beasts by mistake. What exactly was the Chonghua Sword Lord slain? And is she really just crossing over to become a peripheral character in the game plot? The sun rises and the sky rises. The small courtyard located on the rocky cliff below the mountaintop remains peaceful, with peach tree crowns covering the entire courtyard, conscientiously sheltering this small world from wind and rain. As the petals scattered in the morning rain, Sheng Gui, who had returned from the Xuanshuang cave, collected them one by one and placed them in a bamboo basket, hanging them under the corridor. The peach tree has a spirit, and its origin and variety are unknown. Bian Jing tacitly agreed to its existence. The peach blossom petals with abundant spiritual energy are the superior materials for making talismans and medicines, and she is also happy to collect wool. After picking up the petals, Sheng Ting lay down under the peach tree, looking quite lethargic. If the truth is as she guessed, there will be a terminal illness at the beginning and a killing disaster at the end, no one would be happy. Even if she knew a lot in advance, she had no intention of using this convenience to maliciously seize any opportunity. One of the principles of a traveler is to cherish life, stay away from the protagonist, and lightly touch cause and effect. It is uncertain whether it is fate or quagmire to get involved with anything related to the protagonist too early. It's not fear, she understands from the bottom of her heart that she is currently too weak. Apart from the protection of Gui Yushan and the Feng family, a child has no basis for standing up. Being too greedy can easily cause trouble for herself and also affect those around her. Since there is a problem, we need to solve it. Worries are useless. Sheng Yan gently closed his eyes to relax his body and mind, his divine consciousness communicated with his divine soul, and touched the faint silver light dots floating in the dim sea of consciousness. That is her only current reliance, the exclusive customized game system and modifier that she travels with. The divine soul smoothly entered the system space, and it also transformed into a mini version of Tuanzi Sheng Gui. Even if the current level of the system space is too low, it still appears quite vast. Upon closer inspection, it can be seen that there are still 9 floating islands in the space, and the remaining unknown areas are shrouded in a faint silver mist. She is located on the outermost floating island, which is very small and only the size of Guiyu Mountain, where she lives outside. The island was desolate, with a dilapidated 2-story jade pavilion in the center. In the past, there was also a magnificent scene of a towering Cheong Tower. Inside the pavilion, there was a vast collection of books, all of which were martial arts classics, secret stories, and strange records that she had nothing to do in her previous life. Now, there are only a few scattered books in the Jade Pavilion, such as Dan Dao and Pharmacological Compendium, collected from the Xuanshuan Gate Library. Fortunately, in her previous life, she was addicted to the second way of the talisman array, and all the thoroughly read classics are now quietly placed on the white jade bookshelf. Beside the Jade Pavilion is a small and exquisite wooden house, which is her system warehouse. It is currently locked and unlocking requires 100,000 energy points. 100,000 energy points. It only takes 1,000 energy points to open the first floor of the library and the system mall, and only 10,000 energy points to activate the root bone modification function. If you open a door here, it will cost 100,000. Noa Tuanzi muttered softly and pushed the tightly closed wooden door with dissatisfaction, but to no avail. I don't know if I can bring over the things from the warehouse in my previous life during this journey, they are all my treasures. However, the system warehouse is not open, which does not affect the storage and retrieval functions of the space, and earning energy points will take time. Sheng Yan turned around dejectedly and returned to the Jade Pavilion. He sat down by the desk, took out a pen and paper, and wanted to carefully calculate. From the timeline of the plot and her own past records of the cultivation world, it can be inferred that the female protagonist Lu Lanyun is now 8 years old, the same age as her, and it will take 2 more years to reach the cultivation world. At the age of 16, she is in a crisis of life and death. The frost sky spirit ruins bloom every 10,000 years, and I think they will bloom soon. I'll go and take a look. This is the last frost sky spirit core in the heavenly sky realm. The words spoken by Bian Qibai in the daytime kept lingering in Sheng Gui's mind, causing her to feel slightly agitated. Why is the time difference between the blooming of frost sky spirit ruins so large? What happened during those 8 years? Is there really no second frost sky spirit core left? In this way, there are many doubts in the game plot, which has led to Sheng Gui not fully trusting it now. In addition, this is a real and dynamic world full of variables, and it can no longer be viewed as virtual data, but as a reference. 8 years can be said to be long or short. She only has 8 years to prepare and avoid the possibility of dying under the sword of the great perfection Sword Lord, so it is necessary to follow both lines. Firstly, strive to cultivate and at least have the ability to escape by then. Secondly, immediately go to the mortal kingdom and find Lu Lanyun, so that she can grow up under her own nose. The female protagonist was originally going to join the Xuanzhuang sect, so it's not a big deal to start early. Her talent is extraordinary, and pouring resources may lead to higher achievements, so as to avoid that deadly calamity. This is also a good idea, Sheng Yan rubbed in his heart. Of course, there is another option, which is to nestle in Guiyu Mountain and be a shrunken turtle. But this was not what Sheng Gui had hoped for, and half of her life's troubles had made her very tired. She wants to see a broader world. I want to prove that the Tao seeks longevity. Longevity and heavenly harmony. Want to go home. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. On the necessity of sleep. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 on the necessity of sleep. Since the immortal demon war thousands of years ago, the heavenly sky continent has been divided into 3 parts. The human territory to the north, the demon territory to the south, and the elusive demon territory, which do not interfere with each other. That fierce and magnificent battle established the status of the 5 great gates and the 4 holy sites among the human race, with countless affiliated sectarian dynasties under them. 5 major sects, including the Red Sun sect, Xian Frost sect, Lingxiao Sword sect, Giant Spirit sect, and Beast Control sect. Both the Red Sun sect and the Xuanzhuang sect are rich in Dharma cultivation. The 2 founding ancestors and even friends from thousands of years ago have miraculously maintained a friendship between the 2 sects over time. Lingxiao Sword sect, as the name suggests, is the number 1 sword sect in the heavenly sky realm. It is the supreme holy land in the hearts of swordsmen and a great choice for close combat partners. Occasionally, it can also serve as a flesh shield, making it a must-have for team exploration and conquering dungeons. The Giant Spirit sect, in Sheng Gui's heart, is the hometown of physical cultivation, rich in meat shields, and in the Beast Control sect, most of the disciples are accompanied by demon beasts and spiritual beasts, serving as a proper summoner template. The 4 major holy sites are the South Mountain Eclipse Island located in the hinterland of the far south demon domain, the Without a Trace Pagoda and Tianshao Academy in the central region of the mainland, and the mysterious Wunyan Mountain located at the bottom of the sea, which is currently unknown. After sorting out his thoughts, Sheng Yan drew 30 high-quality light body symbols in the system space in one go, and the faces of the little figures transformed into divine souls were covered with fatigue. The system panel shows that there are currently a total of 9,960 energy points accumulated, and 30 high-quality spells can provide 30 energy points. Recycling, all recycling. Sheng Yan gritted his teeth and waved his hand, then took out a large amount of blank rune paper that he had previously hoarded, and gathered the 2 together. Watching the energy points smoothly past 10,000, Sheng Yi was satisfied and left the system space, returning to his divine soul. The slight coolness of rainy days mixed with a light peachwood fragrance fills the heart and spleen, and has a good calming effect. There is an extremely rare eternal spiritual essence buried underground in the stone cliff courtyard where she is located, which is extremely full of spiritual energy. The small courtyard is not large, with 3 quaint and exquisite wooden houses surrounding the peach tree in the middle. One is used for living, while the one on the right is the study and the one on the left is the cultivation place. Pushing open the window reveals a magnificent scene of surging clouds and mist. It's the age of growing up that requires more sleep to grow taller. Wrap yourself in a roll with a cloud silk quilt, let go of your worries and concerns for the time being, and rub your round and rolling face. With the sound of gentle rain, the little ball falls asleep beautifully. In the evening, at the mountaintop cottage. Sure enough, it's still comfortable to sleep on a rainy day, Sheng Yan said with a loud laugh, pushed open the door, and slowly moved to the wooden table to sit down. He casually pulled a chicken leg and put it to his mouth. On Guiyu Mountain, she was actually the only one who needed to eat. The fiery and stubborn poison in Sheng Qi's bloodline was so dominant that in order to reduce the pain of taking pills and medicine, Bian Zheng racked his mind on food. Therefore, the diet on the mountain has always been very particular, and the senior brothers in charge and Bian Qi occasionally come over to eat. The main dish for today's dinner is honey sauce chicken coated with xuanshuang flour honey and stuffed with various types of preserved fruits. The chicken is a first-order white feathered chicken fed with spiritual medicine on the mountain, with tender and smooth meat. Xuanshuang nectar has the effect of clearing heat and detoxifying, refreshing, perfectly neutralizing the sweetness of the dried fruit. It is crispy, tender, and delicious when tasted, with a unique flavor. Several plates of fresh seasonal vegetables and various sauces were placed around the sauce chicken, and a large wooden basin next to it was filled with soft pancakes. Bian Qi looked up at Sheng Yan, his hands moving non-stop, and without changing his color, he spread layers of pepper sauce onto the pancake. "Why is your face so white?" Bian Qi took a bite of the cake and suspected, "Don't be overusing your divine sense again." Sheng Gui felt guilty and muttered vaguely as he gnawed on the chicken leg, "Nothing. Her body is constantly affected by fire and poison, and she is relatively weak." Bian Zheng has always disagreed with her urgent study plan. In the past, her limit was to draw 20 high-quality talismans. In order not to be discovered by Bian Zheng, she deliberately entered the system space to draw talismans. God knows, after accumulating enough 10,000 energy points to activate the root bone repair function, she happily spun around inside for a few laps. "Oh, it smells so good. What's in Zheng's hand?" Seeing Bian Zheng enter the medicine house, Sheng Yan finished nibbling on the chicken legs and wiped her hands. She took the round and thick black stone pot in his hand and carefully lifted it to take a look. Most of it was ingredients she didn't know. "Be careful of burns." Bian Zheng frowned and picked up the hand of the stinky child that was scraping at the edge of the stone pot. "The sea of consciousness is exhausted, and the divine consciousness is weak. You have secretly practiced again." The resolute tone left little Tuanzi unable to refute, and he lowered his head, holding the pancake in an attempt to cover his little face. Bian Zheng had already noticed this girl quietly practicing and added a special sentence. "This is a nourishing soup stewed with fantasy grass roots as the main ingredient, and the taste is very good." Upon hearing this, Bian Qi's face was instantly filled with schadenfreude, and he happily rolled up 3 spicy sauce-wrapped pancakes and sent them to his mouth. I don't know why Bian Qi reacted like this, but Sheng Qi sighed. Currently, she has only roughly recognized the low-level and mid-level spiritual plants, while Huanli grass is a 7th-level spiritual plant and belongs to the high-level spiritual plant. On the bookshelf behind everyone, there happened to be the complete collection of high-level spiritual plants in the heavenly sky realm, written by the founder of the Dan sect and supplemented by his descendants. As the saying goes, a product of the Dan sect must be a masterpiece, and every mistake or omission correction is based on the indomitable vitality of every Dan sect disciple. According to the records in ancient books, phantom glass grass only grows on the cliffs of the deep sea, mostly growing in patches. It has strong vitality and contains highly toxic substances. It is an important auxiliary material for refining pills such as nourishing pills and tonifying pills, and can also be used to decorate various illusion formations. It is not a rare spiritual plant in itself, but rather difficult to pick and preserve. Below is a supplementary note from the unknown generation of disciples. To confuse prey, it emits an extremely tempting fragrance, but its taste is extremely bitter. Do not attempt to consume it directly. An additional line of small characters was added at the end. Warning. Warning. Do not cook it as a food ingredient, otherwise. The words behind were not very clear, so Sheng Ting put the book back on the bookshelf and subtly dipped his chopsticks into a stone pot, dipping a little bit of soup, and put it into the mouth. But before she tried, she really didn't expect the severity of the situation. She only felt that all the food she had eaten for over a decade in her 2 lifetimes was for nothing, and perhaps she would lose the desire to eat for a long time in the future. Losing something without having it is nothing more. A good child should not use foul language, and a good child smiled and curved his eyes. It is indeed very delicious. When I learn how to cook in the future, I will definitely be so filial to Zheng. You can practice slowly first. If Qin, the head chef of the Baiwei pavilion at the foot of Xuanshuang sect, knew that you were so devoted to cooking, he would be willing to give it his all. Bianjing lazily leaned against a rattan chair on one side, with a gentle breeze blowing by the window. His head was covered in silver, and it was equally bright and dazzling on a cloudy day. In the afternoon, the girls solemnly summoned him, saying that there was something important to discuss with him after dinner, and asked him to be present. The coverage of the Mahayana cultivator's divine consciousness is extremely wide. Not to mention the small Guiyu mountain, any wind or grass in the entire Xuanshuang sect is under his control. But the stinky girl has grown up to be more capable, constantly muttering some incomprehensible words, such as privacy and human rights. She is also very sensitive to the divine sense of others and very resistant to someone's sneaky peeking behavior. He even asked him to set up a defensive formation specifically for divine sense exploration in the stone cliff courtyard, although it would not have much effect on a monk at the peak of Mahayana. This wave, called fire prevention, theft prevention, and self-protection, cannot guarantee that someone's heart will always be sour. When Feng Xian brought the child to search for him, if it weren't for the stubborn smell in the hard-opened eyes, Bianzheng would have thought that his friend's arms were a lifeless corpse. At that moment, whether influenced by friends or through some kind of fate, this renowned cultivation world, the youngest, seemingly cold and ruthless Mahayana cultivator who was just squatting at home and not good at communicating with others, softened his heart. Sheng Ting is a child he brought back from the brink of death and raised with his own hands, watching her learn to speak, walk, read and study, draw symbols to make poison, and demolish her home and cause explosions. Bianzheng promised that he didn't mean to do it today. It was just that he accidentally glanced at her after she fell asleep and saw it. What is this stinky girl bothering herself so much when she's been running errands for years? Can't this teach a lesson? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. On Family, Part 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 On Family, Part 1, It's not yet feasible to repair your root bone. After listening to Sheng Ting's story, Bianzheng closed his eyes and pondered for a while before speaking. The fire and poison within the bloodline of Sheng Gui were extremely domineering, devouring cultivation, burning root bones, and devouring qi in blood. When they were rescued from the underworld sea of blood in the past, their lives were already hanging on the line. The root bones were completely destroyed by the fire and poison, and before their qi and blood were completely depleted, Feng Xian and Bianzheng emptied most of their family assets, which was enough to save the child's life. The two of them had no idea about this, and Feng Xian ran around searching for natural resources and treasures like he had beaten chicken blood for years, giving his precious daughter who claimed to be destined a new life. Fire and poison are not eliminated, everything else is just empty talk. Even if he has the power to seize the creation of heaven and earth, to install new spiritual roots and find new bloodline inheritance for Sheng Yi, he will be burned to ashes in a flash. However, it is not entirely hopeless. In the past few years, Bianzheng has searched all the valleys of the boundless snowfield, big and small. With great luck, he has discovered a frosty spirit core with attributes ranging from shade to cold, and it is about to bloom. For the past 2 years, I have spent most of my time studying fire and poison in Guiyu Mountain, while Feng Xian is outside inquiring and collecting information. I don't want to let go of anything related to yin and cold. Bianzheng sat up straight, frowning lightly. But so far, apart from the heavenly frost spirit core, there is no spiritual object that can suppress fire and poison. Watching his elder brother's scattered silver long hair crash on the ground, Bianchi's eyelids twitched and he forcefully averted his gaze. My elder brother has always loved to speak truthfully and hardly beat around the bush, which means that the heavenly frost spirit Rui may only have a suppressive and relieving effect, and cannot completely eradicate the fire poison. This time, the poor child's hope is likely to fall through again. Unfortunately, this child is also very intelligent. After just 3 or 4 years of getting along, the two brothers have long discovered that Sheng Gui comes with Su Hui. She can often capture some information from a few words, which is usually not easy to deceive. The concern that only belongs to the elders will be fulfilled in the next moment. Sheng Yan held his cheeks in both hands and spoke softly, "I understand what Jing means. The heavenly frost spirit Rui is just a hope, and I have to continue waiting." The light in the little girl's eyes seemed to dim a bit, and her soft black hair, curled up in clumps, was swaying with the movement of her head. Bian Jing reached out and gently poked, smoothly hearing Sheng Yan's dissatisfied groans. "Yes, when you are 10 years old, the Feng family will come to pick you up and hold a wake-up ceremony at the Hui tribe's place." Looking at the little girl holding her hair tightly, Bian Jing withdrew her hand with satisfaction. Before that, the frost sky spirit ruins should have completely matured, and in any case, they are all one word, and we also want to hear your meaning. The meaning behind this statement is that if you have any requirements, you can raise them, but whether they can be met or not still depends on us. Shang-Chi let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, she was not overwhelmed by the joy of accumulating enough 10,000 energy points. She immediately activated the root bone repair function, which was like opening a door. Who knows how many energy points she needs to throw into it later. But in the end, she was unwilling to accept it. In her previous life, she had seen the magnificent rivers and mountains in the game world, and she never wanted to go outside and see the world she had been longing for a long time with her own eyes. She has been tired of hearing words like, "Wait, wait, it will get better," for over a decade. Sheng Yan clenched his fist, his face unable to conceal his excitement. The wind outside the window seemed to be strong, causing itching in his throat. "I am really, really grateful for the care of Ajeng and Aki," the little person said softly, with a serious expression on their face, looking straight into Bianjing's eyes. "But you know, I don't want to wait. I haven't experienced many things, and I don't know what the real world looks like. The stories in my notebook are always very beautiful. I have lived in Guiyu Mountain for 8 years, including 3 years of sleep. I have never gone out yet. On the mountainside, I have planted many flowers, some of which are extremely precious, and some are just the most common and visible sons of the mountains and fields. Some of them, under my careful care, still fail to grow as I want, while others can take root and sprout even when I am neglected due to illness. The sky is getting dark, the mountain breeze is making a sound, and the clouds and tides are surging. Everything has multiple possibilities, and it's unrealistic to expect good luck to come to me." Sheng Ting walked forward and gently broke open Bian Zheng's slender hands, which had turned white due to excessive force, and carefully grasped them. "If you want to go out, you must first pass the hurdle of your own guardian in front of you. Little Tuanzi has a clear mind. It's very dangerous outside, I'm very worried." The delicate and beautiful white-haired fairy had a worried expression on her face, holding on to her thin and cold little hand in front of her, her voice slightly hoarse. "If Yen wants to go out and play, I can also take you out. You can go anywhere." Xuanzi shook her head, the wind getting stronger and stronger, and rubbed her face with her hair. "She is more of a burden to Bianzheng. Zheng is very busy, so this is not possible. Senior brother Shuangxue is still very young, and managing a large sect is not easy. When Feng Xian is free, we can take turns taking you out, and Bian Qi can also take you out. This won't work either." That was just a lucky coincidence that caused her to kidnap Bian Zheng and her cheap father for a lot of time. Both emotion and reason are unbearable in the heart, and we cannot take any more advantages. Without seeing the two big and small performers performing wildly, Bian Qi quietly nibbled on the cake. The dough in the barrel bottomed out and couldn't help but open his mouth. This doesn't work, that doesn't work, what's going on? The soft and delicate atmosphere that was suitable for expressing emotions was swept away by the sudden shouting. Shang-Chi glanced at the exquisitely looking young man with a strong breath, ran over with a thud, and then tore off the flaunting colorful feather band on his head before flying away quickly. Watching Bian Chi's silver hair also falling down, gritting his teeth in anger on one side, Xuanzi was satisfied and placed one hand on his waist, while the other hand pressed down on the table. Generally speaking, it is necessary to speak with great momentum. Of course I'm going out. I'm going out. I'm going on an adventure. Bianchi felt the veins on his forehead jump to the ground speechless. He didn't want to get used to this stinky girl. What's wrong with going out? If you want to cultivate but haven't, will you go out and die? What do you know? Opportunities. Organic opportunities. Where did the opportunity come from? How did you know? How do I know where the chance is if I don't go out? You're so weak, how can you get out? I won't go out, how can I become stronger? Sheng Ting was so anxious that he jumped, really anxious and helpless. The mountain wind, accompanied by the sea of clouds, still roars tirelessly, without stopping. Bian Zheng remained silent for a long time, and after watching the two children play and frolic, he got up and walked to the window. Where are you going? The voice and shadow of the white-haired fairy were very calm, and her face was also very restless. Little Tuanzi's eyes lit up and he quickly took Bian Zheng's hand. He looked up at the quiet and beautiful face and calmly said, "South, I'm going south. I feel that there is a chance for me in the south. The earth and wind have conveyed the will of this world. She is going to find Lu Lanyan. Go and meet the proud son of heaven, who is known as the hope of the human race. Go and see her past. There is still a future ahead." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. On Family, Middle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 On Family, Middle. Shang-Chi continued to nag and chatter around Bian Zheng for a long time. Unable to resist the drowsiness behind him, he was grabbed by Bian Chi's clothes and carried back to the stone cliff courtyard to rest. As soon as the promise was spoken, Bian Zheng regretted it. It seems that such a difficult decision made him so anxious that he lost a lot of hair. The two brothers here are both extremely talented and intelligent, and their cultivation has reached this level, so their minds are naturally exquisite and transparent. Bian Chi naturally understands where big brother's concerns lie. However, according to him, his elder brother may have been so flustered that his brain went out of his mind. Nowadays, the cultivation world practices the law of the jungle, and killing and robbing treasures is very popular. Since the establishment of the Cultivator Association in the cultivation world, there have been numerous records of such malignant events, not to mention those that have not yet been recorded. If you ask me, don't worry, this stinky girl will know how comfortable the mountain is when she goes out to eat hard. As the saying goes, it's not impossible for the girl to quietly follow her when she goes out. There are those with ulterior motives, and when she can't solve them, they will jump out and take a beating. Isn't there a lesson to be learned by operating in this way? Bian Chi retrieved his colorful feather belt from his claws and carefully combed his silver hair in front of the water mirror, while expressing his thoughts. That headband was sewn with the feathers of an extremely rare 7th-order rainbow bird, with a color like a rainbow glow. It was so rare that he deliberately brought it back, not because his hair was messed up. You should also go back first. If Frost and Snow can't finish processing the files, it's probably time to be urgent again. Bian Zheng had a severe headache and raised his hand to rub the center of his eyebrows, watching as Bian Chi disappeared from sight. Smelling the restless aroma of peach wood in the stone cliff courtyard, he raised his hand and slowly poured 2 cups of herbal tea, no longer feeling depressed as before, and spoke loudly. Since you're here, let's have a cup of tea. Seemingly angry, several peach blossom petals flew from the window into the medicine house, blowing all over the room. The peach-colored halo stepped on the petals and lightly landed on the shoulders of the white-haired fairy, with a crisp yet steady sound. It's shameless to not even treat guests to a cup of hot tea. You're not a guest, you're just a scoundrel who refuses to leave. Bianzheng raised his eyebrows, rolled his eyes, and gently brushed his sleeve over his shoulder, sweeping a peach-colored halo into the teacup. Well, the first person in the cultivation world, completely without any idle burden. You really don't care about that child at all. When did Xuanchuang's sect become so poor, but with a handful of broken grass paper, she had to go up the mountain and mow the grass herself? The peach-colored halo lazily floated on the water surface, not wanting to move. I have tried to persuade, but I cannot. Moreover, the Xuanchuang sect does lack the inheritance of talismans, and there are also very few elders and disciples who follow one of the talismans within the sect. Bianzheng lay down on a rattan chair, too lazy to refute her. The talisman seal script with various convenient functions has always been loved by cultivators, and the talisman seal script in the treasure pavilion of the sect has always been in high demand. As for talisman materials and the like, to be honest, there is really not much market in the Xuanchuang sect. The managers in charge of the treasure pavilion also have to eat. Bianzheng is an honest native of the cultivation world. After spending a lot of time with Xing Yan, she always unconsciously led her astray and learned some novel vocabulary and strange ways of speaking. How to put it, some can also be called yin-yang weiqi. You were also there that day, and you heard what she said. Xuanchuang sect is Xuanchuang sect. I am myself, she is her, and she cannot rely on me for a lifetime to eat. For Xing Qi's overly self-reliant and self-reliant personality, Bianzheng's hair may have turned white a few times. In the past, he even consulted with his nephews on how to take care of a human cub. The learning effect may not be very good. Compared to alchemy and refining tools, it's not just a little bit difficult. Bianzheng sighed and realized that it's all debt. The little girl from another family is at a delicate and playful age, lively and playful. It's sour, and I can smell a smell from standing at the foot of the mountain. The peach-colored halo swayed a few times in the teacup, and Guangtuanzi inexplicably exuded a strong sense of disgust. It must be because you told that kid Frost Snow last time that you're leaving in less than 100 years, and she heard about it. That's why this kid feels so insecure. The voice coming from within the small light group was filled with complaints. Although it is popular in our demon realm to let the young go out for training, there is no reason to completely allow the sick to rely on themselves. Are you saying that I'm missing her food or her accommodation? Bianzheng's face showed anger. Is the point with me? Is it me who wants her to be self-sufficient? Okay, I was wrong. The peach-colored halo summoned a petal to float on the water, while I comfortably nestled into the curled petals. But I am very curious. What would happen if the outside world found out that Bianzheng Daozuan, who is known as the first person in the cultivation world and indifferent to worldly affairs, is actually a compassionate person with superb medical skills? So this is each other, shameless guests. If you say these words, you also need someone to believe them and the courage to come knocking on your door. Bianzheng regained his indifferent demeanor and looked at the neatly sorted elixirs outside the window corridor. Although it is difficult to understand some of Xing Yan's behaviors, it must be admitted that this child's talent in certain things exceeds his imagination. Not to mention the whimsical ideas that often arise from the second path of the talisman array, even the newly introduced study of elixirs has made great progress. He could feel the obvious resistance of Sheng Gui to Dan Dao. It is common for people to have little interest in this path, as it is accompanied by elixirs every day. The foundation of the spiritual pulse has been almost completely destroyed, and it is also a 3 spiritual roots. Its aptitude is not very good, but relying on Xuanchuang's sect and him can lead a much more comfortable life than ordinary people. My own child worked so hard, feeling relieved, but ultimately felt even more heartbroken. Even though it is so difficult, do we still have to move forward? Bian Zheng is not very clear about the reason for her hard work, so she is powerless. She's very scared, Bian Zheng spoke softly. I don't know what she's afraid of, as long as I'm here, she can survive. The peach-colored halo felt a hint of fragility in the words of the white-haired fairy, and was secretly surprised for a while, but did not make a sound of mockery. Perhaps it's because the days on the mountain used to be very lonely and boring. She thought of a thin and frail figure who had been diligently watering herself over the years, some struggles in long nights, some small things brought by the flowing streams in the mountains, and some insignificant wishes in the spring snow. The entire light cluster became serious, no longer flickering. There is naturally great fear between life and death, and natural fear. That's the fate she has to face. She was very scared and anxious, but the faint courage revealed behind her fear was truly commendable. Bian Zheng stood up and pushed open the door of the medicine house. As elders, we naturally have to take on the responsibility of making them less afraid. Looking at Bian Zheng's movements, a peach-colored halo paused for a moment. Are you going out? Because it makes sense, prepare early. The silver figure replied concisely, turning around and disappearing into the rain curtain. The peach-colored halo paused, accompanied by a faint smile, swaying and flying out of the window, gradually disappearing into the distance. In the medicine house, there was silence, only the sound of tea boiling on the small stove. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. On Family, Part 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 On Family, Part 2. Xuanshuang sect is located in the far north of the Tianshao continent, with its mountain gate located on the outermost side of the boundless snow plain. There are thousands of peaks, big and small, stretching endlessly, guarding the 5 main peaks that rise from the sky in the center. The Bixia Peak in the Dan Xiu lineage, the Lingqi Peak in the Qi Xiu lineage, and the Sword Xiu lineage are called Sword Peaks. The cultivators in the Formation Xiu lineage are located at Tianluo Peak, and the largest Xuanshuang Peak is occupied by the Fa Xiu lineage, which has the largest number of people. The 5 peaks are petal-shaped and surround the floating island in the center. Shaoyun Mountain, on which is the main hall and residence. Guiyu Mountain is located on the edge closer to the boundless snowfield. Bianjing first went to the main hall of the sect and greeted his master's nephew, Chuangxue. As the leader, Chuangxue is also the leader of Xuanshuang Peak. He is only over 200 years old and has reached the peak of transforming gods. He is also one of the best among the younger generation. I don't love practicing in my lifetime, I don't want to be a sect leader, I only love writing storybooks. In the monthly release of the Cultivation World's major events by the Practitioners Association, there are already several articles he quietly publishes under the name of Yin Lingzi, which are highly sought after, and Sheng Gui is also one of them. Currently, he is buried in a mountain of sect files, with various disputes arising from various peaks every day. The Law Enforcement Hall always fulfills its duties and reports everything to the sect leader without any details. Frost Snow felt that he was a shameless sect leader, but he couldn't beat the old members of the Law Enforcement Hall. His master ascended early, and even his senior brothers and sisters, who didn't want to become sect leaders, went on a crazy cultivation and ascended early. He was the latest to enter the sect, and before they left, almost nothing was left for him. Having no money, no power, and no support is the typical best choice for being a laborer. Upon hearing the sound, Frost Snow was startled and mistakenly thought that the elders of the Law Enforcement Hall had come to recite scriptures again. She quickly stood up. Before the shouting could be heard, Frost Snow's gaze met with Bianzheng, who pushed open the door. She awkwardly waved and, thinking she was appropriate, cheerful, and generous, pulled the corners of her mouth, trying to squeeze out a perfect smile. She said, "Isn't this uncle? What can I do for you, nephew? My nephew. If you can't laugh, you can skip it." Ignoring the piles of files and the stiff face of Frost and Snow in the room, Bianzheng muttered to himself, wondering what he would do if he had nothing to do, so he spoke up directly. "Give me the order from the sect leader, I want to open the sect's treasure trove. Staring at the young martial uncle with a face full of low pressure who was about to rob, Frost and Snow had just been fortunate enough to avoid the disaster, and the happy smile on their face gradually disappeared the next second. Mainly because he is very poor. It's really very poor. Being so poor that he occasionally counts the treasures in the treasure trove is his only pleasure besides writing a notebook. Senior uncle. We use power for personal gain. This one. Isn't it too kind? Having obtained what he wanted, Bian Zheng ignored the young nephew who couldn't finish criticizing the howling file. He left Shaoyun Mountain satisfied and went to find the leader of the Formation Peak. As one of the only 4 remaining 9th grade masters in the cultivation world, Bian Zheng has always been extremely wealthy. The leader of the Array Peak is someone who loves children. When he heard that he wanted to prepare for the travel experience of the younger generation in his family, Bian Zheng was generous, and he was also very generous. He directly gave a comprehensive array gift package, and also thoughtfully provided a detailed explanation of how to use the array. After hesitating for a moment, Bian Zheng turned around and headed towards Jianfeng. The peak leader of Jianfeng, Chonghua Daojun, was once under the tutelage of Ruotong Jianjun, the junior sister of the previous sect leader. He was young, upright, and generally considered to be one of the best. Since taking charge of the sword, he has strict requirements for his disciples and is also very concerned about the safety of everyone. Bian Zheng directly explained his intention, and for the fat brought to his door, Chonghua naturally had no reason to refuse. He generously gave 3 sword energies that he had condensed. When Xingting woke up the next morning and received the travel gift package prepared for her by Bian Zheng, she was so excited that she almost jumped onto the top of the medicine tent. After returning to Guiyu Mountain last night, Bian Zheng overnight refined a new spatial spiritual artifact. In addition to the master of Dan Dao, he also holds the identity of a 9th grade alchemist. Before the emergence of a new 7th level alchemist in the Xuanshuang sect, he served as the substitute peak master of the weapon peak. The cultivators in the Tianshao continent will generally divide the level of various tools into magical tools and spiritual tools, with immortal tools above them not mentioned for the time being. The first 2 have a theory of 9 levels, with levels 1 to 3 being lower, levels 4 to 6 being medium, and levels 7 to 9 being upper. Those above them are considered top-notch. The bracelet-shaped spatial spiritual artifact has no other significant function except for its large internal space and storage capacity. The only clever point is that a large piece of ethereal iron is used in the forging of spiritual artifacts, which is a necessary item for creating a large teleportation array. Bian Zheng carved a large ultra-long-distance teleportation array inside the spiritual vessel. On the other end of the teleportation array is his own storage space, which is equivalent to forming a parent-child bracelet that can be exchanged. As long as he wants, as long as Sheng Gui is still within the territory of the human race, he can instantly teleport any object through the teleportation array. Of course, not living people. Besides the above, the biggest drawback is that the transmission cost is a bit high, but someone said they don't care. The bracelet contained everything that Bian Zheng could think of, including various elixirs and spiritual plants that little girls could use or not, as well as indispensable poisons. Boxes of magical clothing and tools were packed inside, and the looted array plates, talismans, and seals were carefully classified. Sheng Yan glanced at them, and found that the number of high-level talismans and seals was relatively small. There were several types of 8th and 9th level array plates, and he was so happy that he almost fainted. Calm down, be calm. She originally planned to sell some of her own talismans and seals to the treasure pavilion opened by the sect, and save some money for travel expenses. When you see light in the space, there are several types of spiritual veins, and top-grade spiritual stones pile up into mountains, not to mention the mid to low-grade spiritual stones that stretch into a sea. There is also an excellent spiritual vein. So, with a smooth change in mindset, what is it that money doesn't have to be? Little fool. Thank goodness, she met Bianzheng, and also thank Bianzheng for letting her rely on her strength to eat for free. It is worth mentioning that this bracelet, which connects the storage space at the end of the Bianzheng, can only be used by Sheng Gui. When it falls into someone else's hand, it is a regular jade bracelet with a dark appearance. This is also for you. Looking at the little ball that pounced on him with a silly smile, Bianzheng smiled helplessly and took out a jade pendant that was almost transparent all over. He carefully tied it to Sheng Yan's neck and disappeared after a moment. Ah Zheng, what is this? Feeling a cold touch on his chest and seeing the pendant disappear from his sight, Sheng Yan curiously reached out and touched it. Bianzheng held down the restless little ball and patiently answered while combing her hair, "Keep it a secret for now, you will know later. Do you want to go to the treasure pavilion of the sect and see what else you need to prepare?" After tying little Tuanzi's hair into two crooked balls, he looked around and seemed to have thought of something. He paused for a moment. Some things are destined in the dark, and now that you feel them. Let's set off early then. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The First Step of Travel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The First Step of Travel. Deeply aware that the opportunity mentioned by Bianzheng was not waiting for anyone. Under the pressure of a life and death crisis, with the idea that choosing a day is better than colliding with it, Sheng Ting packed up and prepared to set off. A few years ago, I sold a large number of first-order improved explosive symbols and speed running symbols produced during my own practice to the treasure pavilion, and the sales were very good, which can be considered as accumulating a lot of sect contribution points. She first went to the sect's library to burn a map of the heavenly sky continent and provide detailed explanations of various forces. Then, she went to Shaoyun Mountain to water a flower and agreed with Bianzheng on a time to travel and return, ensuring timely communication of the latest situation. Then, she hurriedly rushed to the flying boat boarding point within the sect. The flying boats of Xuanshuang's sect are all made by the elders and disciples of Qifeng, with a variety of styles and styles. They are not only used for export, but also have opened multiple routes throughout the cultivation mortal realms, bringing a large amount of revenue to the sect every year. The destination of Sheng Gui's trip is the Yongliang dynasty located in the southwest of the human territory. In addition to fixed routes, the Zhongniai flying boat also provides rental services, and occasionally there are some special routes. Today, there happened to be a flying boat mainly responsible for transporting supplies, directly reaching a city named Dei in the southwest. After a moment of contemplation, I realized that renting a flying boat alone may not be very safe, but following others is more secure. Having made a decision, Sheng Ting walked to the registration desk and placed his identity jade plaque on the table. He spoke to his disciple, Kuai Sheng, who was buried in the registration behind him. "Senior sister, I want to go to Dei. How many spirit stones do I need?" Fei Zhouping has always been under the jurisdiction of Lingqi Peak, and most of the affairs up and down are under the jurisdiction of the inner disciples within the peak. According to them, practicing and refining weapons is a kind of experience, so why can't doing business and accounting be the same? Therefore, Lingqi Peak has always been very wealthy, and most of its disciples are top-notch and round in character, with round wallets as well. Today at the registration counter, there were 6 disciples under the 5 elders of Lingqi Peak, Ji Mei. Upon hearing a slightly immature shout, he looked up in surprise and looked around. His beautiful apricot eyes were filled with confusion. "Where are people?" "Senior sister, I'm down here." Sheng Ting tried hard to tiptoe up, grabbed the table, and pushed the identity jade plaque forward, finally attracting the attention of the other side. "Oh, which Peak's junior sister is this? Why is she alone here?" "Not good." Jimei opened her mouth in surprise and secretly thought to herself, "It looks like she's only 5 or 6 years old, whose child has secretly escaped." "You said you're going to Dei. That's far away." The young woman Xiao walked around and crouched down, patiently saying, "Where's your family? Can't you sneak out on your own?" I have the approval letter from Senior Frost Snow, let me show you. Senior Brother Shuangxue, are you referring to the sect leader? Ji Mei became even more bewildered. The jade plate she handed over was written crookedly with the words, I hereby approve Sheng Gui to travel outside the sect, and below it was a shining seal of the sect leader. She took out her identity jade plate and verified it, as if it were a fake exchange. A male cultivator on the distant Feizhou Ping shouted loudly, those who are going to Dei should hurry up and board the ship. After we finish moving the goods, we will be flying. So, senior sister, how many spirit stones do you need to board the ship at Dei? Hearing the urging sound, Sheng Ting felt a little anxious and repeated it again. Ji Mei didn't react for a moment and casually said, 100 lower-grade spirit stones, or 2 contribution points. As the flying boat was about to take off, Xing Xian retrieved his identity jade plaque, took out a bag of spirit stones and placed them on the table. Without looking back, he rushed towards the direction where the flying boat was located. Hey, this child. He hasn't registered yet. Unable to let go of her worries, Ji Mei summoned her senior sister to come and take over the shift through a message from Yujin. Sheng Gui stepped onto the flying boat in front of her, and she followed suit on board. Senior sister Ji, why did you come up too? Are you going to skip class? The tall disciple at the cabin door looked at the 3-inch ding in her own senior sister who had entered one after another, and asked with a puzzled expression, is this your child? I haven't heard that Elder Wu has taken disciples again. Ji Mei rolled his big white eyes at Qianheng, his face speechless and said, no, I don't know which peak's young disciple stole out and threw a money bag without registration. He boarded the ship and quickly chased after him. After speaking, there was a loud roar, and the outer hatch of the flying boat gradually closed. It's broken, it's time to set off. The tall cultivator, also known as Qianheng, hurriedly took out the message. Yu Jian was about to notify the steering disciple to open the hatch again, and with a slight vibration, the flying boat had already lifted off the ground and entered mid-air. The two of them stared at the 3-inch ding, who was practicing 3 layers of qi at their feet, and remained silent for a moment. Sheng Gui felt guilty and touched his nose, then took out a jade plate and showed them carefully. I didn't lie to you, senior brother Shuangxue said he can go out. Qianheng's face also became delicate. Previously, there were rumors that the leader was unreliable, but I didn't expect him to be so unreliable. Ji Mei sighed and pondered for a moment before saying, forget it, everyone has come. I'll accompany her on a trip and I can also make up the registration when I get off the ship later. This child doesn't want to reveal her background, so let her go and ask someone to inquire about it. At this moment, Sheng Qi, who had taken the first step of her journey, was very happy. She gave Ji Mei and Qianheng a few of her favorite spiritual fruits as a gesture of gratitude and ran to the tail of the flying boat. The flying boat has successfully entered the high altitude and smoothly navigated through the clouds. This type of boat, which is specifically responsible for transporting goods, is usually a fully enclosed elliptical shape with stable performance and extremely long flight distance. The flowing cloud runes engraved on the boat greatly improve the speed and safety of the flying boat. There are only a few areas inside the boat for people to move around, and a formation is thoughtfully set up to ensure the comfort of passengers. There is a huge porthole at the rear of this flying boat, which allows for a clear view of the scenery outside. However, due to the fast flying speed, everything has become blurry. Sheng Gui shook his head regretfully and estimated that it would take about half a month to reach Dei. He then huddled in the corner and sent a message to Bian Qi and Frost Shui, saying, don't worry about going on a long journey. After quickly throwing the messenger jade slip into the storage bracelet, Xia Chuanzi began to happily count all his personal assets. Firstly, she picked out a few of her favorite robes from the storage bracelet, along with several attack, concealment, and defense arrays, and put them together into the ice jade storage ring she was wearing in her left hand. This ring was a gift from Feng Xian when she was 5 years old. At that time, she had not yet started practicing, and without cultivation, she could not use the storage bag smoothly. The storage ring only needed to be branded with divine consciousness to be used, and its body shape would also disappear according to the owner's wishes. It could not be detected or explored unless she had completed the tribulation period. It was truly useful, and its level is still unknown. Then he prepared several storage bags, each containing varying quantities of spirit stones and various low-level elixirs, talismans, and seals. After scratching his head for a moment, Sheng Yen painfully put in several spirit fruit preserves. Shaoyan Mountain, in the main hall of the sect, the lingering cold air becomes more and more condensed. Upon receiving the message, Frost Shui looked at the apprentice in front of him with a skeptical gaze, whose head was constantly falling with ice debris. "I'm not aware, I didn't participate, I don't agree, don't look at me," Bian Qi said coldly. Frost Snow glanced at the frozen main hall again, grabbed her eerie disappearance and sudden return of the Patriarch's seal, and began to hold her head in agony and cry. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Encountering Attacks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Encountering Attacks. Dei City is located in the central area of the southwestern part of the human territory, and was originally only a large neighborhood under the jurisdiction of the Practitioners' Guild. With the passage of time, factors such as geographical location and relative safety have attracted more and more cultivators to settle here. Subsequently, some sects and aristocratic families have successively opened shops here, which has gradually flourished to this day. Dei is also the gateway between the secular and spiritual realms in the southwest. Sheng Jian learned from the book that the secular world is ruled by secular imperial dynasties, while the cultivation world does not interfere too much with their rule. Every 10 years, the major forces in the cultivation world will send people to their own imperial court for spiritual testing, covering everyone from 6 to 16 years old. If I intend to join a sect, I will take it away, and I will not force it unintentionally. Xiao Sheng Gui, we will be arriving at Dei soon. Ji frowned as he knocked on the salt and pepper-flavored melon seeds given by Sheng Gui, and his eyes curved with a smile. I heard that new dishes have been served in Manxiangla recently. When we get off the ship, we will go and try them. Half a month has passed in a blink of an eye, but these days she has been blinded by the sweet words of Xia Chuanzi, almost forgetting the reason for this unexpected trip. Now, she has happily listed her action plan before returning. Sheng Ting counted with his fingers, his face serious. Before he could speak, he was interrupted by Qian Heng's hearty laughter. "Junior sister, don't listen to senior sister Ji's nonsense. There is no appointment at Monxiang Tower, and we have to queue for days and nights. Maybe we haven't even lined up yet when we go back. It's better to go to Baiwei Pavilion at the entrance of our Xuanshuang sect." Qian Heng kept peeling melon seeds on his hand and continued, "Have you heard of that? Recently, there have been some malignant cases of flying boats being attacked by monsters, causing destruction and human death." Ji Mei grabbed the peeled melon seeds in front of Qian Heng and secretly made a fuss. There have been many monster attacks on flying boats since ancient times. Later, the 5 major sects, for holy sites, and the Practitioner Guild jointly formulated a roadmap, trying their best to avoid most of the habitats of demon beasts, resulting in a significant reduction in casualties. Occasionally, some were also normal. The strange thing is that the location of the attack is not a wilderness or wilderness area at all, but around the city walls. Upon hearing this, Sheng Gui was taken aback. Major cities are usually guarded by giant formations, and those who can destroy flying boats are definitely not low-level or even mentally undeveloped monsters. Most of the spiritually enlightened beasts are unwilling to rashly go to the territory of the human race. She has always had a keen sense of crisis, and the unease in her heart has become increasingly strong. Therefore, she took it seriously, got up, ran to the window, and her thoughts sank into the system space, quickly searching for the Cultivation World diary she had written. Got it. In the 369th year of the new Tianshao calendar, the flying boat transporting supplies of the Xuanshuang sect was attacked by a fourth-order fierce golden falcon outside the city of Dei belonging to the Practitioner Guild, and all members died. On the other hand, Qianheng took out the major events of the cultivation world from his storage bag, and Ji Mei also leaned in front of him. You see, just the first 2 months are starting from 6. Ji Mei teased and said, there was also a meeting near Dei. We wouldn't have happened to meet each other so coincidentally, would we? Without looking at the parchment roll in Qianheng's hand, Sheng Ting's heart twitched and he wanted to rush over to cover the senior sister's mouth. Help, it's not really that clever, is it? Unfortunately, it was too late. As soon as the words fell, a huge collision sound came from the top of the flying boat, and the entire boat began to shake violently. In addition to quickly grabbing the edge pillars of the cabin, Jimei and Qianheng, who were unprepared, were accidentally shaken out. Both of them only had the cultivation in the early stage of building the foundation, and had no defensive magic tools on their bodies. They couldn't withstand such a violent impact and rolling, landing heavily and fainting, with blood constantly overflowing from their mouths. The medium-sized flying boat that everyone is riding on has undergone multiple improvements from the spirit weapon peak. As it is only used for transporting supplies, it has not been equipped with attack-type spiritual weapons for speed considerations. Its speed is comparable to that of a Yuanying subverting cultivator's full flight, but it can only withstand several attacks from the Golden Core cultivator at the highest. The fourth-order Golden Falcon is a special case, with cultivation close to the later stage of the Golden Elixir. Moreover, due to its metallic nature as a monster, its sharp claws and wings are extremely sharp, causing damage to iron and stone creatures to multiply. It is easy to destroy some small and medium-sized flying boats. Before Qianheng fainted, his mind was full of thoughts. They were careless. You shouldn't take it lightly just because you are too familiar with the flight route. Seiki, who was firmly holding onto the pillar, didn't dare to let go at all. The high-level magic robe on his body weakened most of the impact and widened his eyes. Outside the window, the fierce golden falcon, which was almost the same size as the flying boat, had bright red eyes and its wings tightly pressed against the edge of the boat to prevent it from moving forward. Xuanzhua and the falcon's beak vigorously tapped the top of the iron lump in front of it, causing sparks to burst out everywhere. Upon closer inspection, it seemed to be covered in a thin layer of blood mist all over its body. It must be stopped. Otherwise, they haven't been eaten by the Ligean falcon yet, and the flying boat will either be damaged and fall, or touch the core formation and explode directly in the air. Without much thought, Sheng Yi threw a sixth-order auxiliary array upwards. This array is quite unique, named Qianwizi. The formation it records is called Qiangshuanwei, which is also a well-known binding formation among many auxiliary formations. It is famous for its difficulty in refining and high precision requirements. After the formation was activated, thousands of snow-white threads flowed out with the heart of Sheng Yi. In an instant, she was tightly wrapped around her and then spread around, covering the entire cabin. Then, through the cracks on the roof of the ship, she stretched outwards, enveloping the crazy-looking Ligean falcon and the entire flying boat together. Bound by countless soft yet extremely tough threads, the Ligean falcon lost its mobility in a blink of an eye. Taking advantage of the slow movement of the flying boat, Shang-Chi peeled off the cocoon-shaped ball that wrapped around his soft elastic shell, grabbed the scattered silk thread in the cabin to stabilize his figure, and hurried to the side of the unconscious and vomiting blood two people. After feeding them the second-level spring pill, he used the final formation to wrap them in the soft silk cocoon formed by the silk thread and turned around to fly towards the flying boat cockpit located at the bow. Her cultivation level is too low now. Even if she has strong spiritual awareness, she cannot climb to the outside of the flying boat and directly attack the Ligean falcon. Once the killing array above level 5 is activated, she has no confidence in protecting everyone on the ship, and the flying boat may even split apart with the Ligean falcon. In the cockpit, the steering disciple also fainted on the ground, and after feeding him a spring revival pill, Sheng Xian climbed onto the driver's seat with his hands and feet. The outer side of the flying boat gradually cracked, and several cracks directly damaged most of the formation, presenting a trend of collapse and falling. Although there are autonomous flying boats, she also specialized in learning the driving methods of small and medium-sized flying boats in her previous life. As he watched as he was about to enter the boundary of the Grady city, Sheng Yen gritted his teeth and threw another fast lane formation with his backhand, enveloping the entire flying boat. Speed lane symbols slapped against the hull of the boat. Pull the power system directly to its maximum. Then operate the 1,000-thread silk formation to turn oneself and the lying disciple into cocoons, and then pull the Li Jin falcon to the bow position. Aim at the barrier of Dei City and move forward at full speed. End of this chapter.